Okay, so now I have loaded the step 5, which includes all my material alternative as well as my cross-section position alternative and my keyframe animation for my cross-section that is going through my building exactly the same way they have been created for the video. So this is where I'm at. Next in a video, what I do is I start creating some animated shots. So I'm going to press T on the keyboard to load the animated shots, the shots basically. So you see now that I have a list of different shots. The shot that was created with the FBX, the animated shots that were created automatically as part of my import template, the additional still images that I have created while I was navigating inside of my building. But now I want to create my own animated shot. So there's two ways that you can go about it. You can actually go and edit some of these default shots that were created, but this is not how I'm doing it in the video. I am actually going ahead and creating my own animation. So this is what I'm going to show you here. So basically I'm going to pick an angle to start with. Let me just close the alternatives here so we have more real estate. So any angle will do, and I'm going to go create a start to end animation. So basically, a lot of people like to use the cinematic, which are predetermined animation, either orbit, zoom in, zoom out, track left. You know, you can use that as a combination. Personally, I think they're a little bit static, and I like to create my own because I think I'm a better cinematographer. So let's do that and create our own. So I'm going to choose the option start to end. And basically, it's going to give me a shot property menu. So I can call this animation 01. And basically, the only thing that you have to do is select the start and end point, and Showcase going to give you an kind of an interpolation in between these 2 points. So let's say here that I want to start my camera. There you go. So this is my starting point of my animation. I'm going to reset that. And now I'm going to choose the end point of my animation, maybe something like this. Yes, I like that. I'm going to reset it. And basically, I only have to decide how long is this animation, probably 3 seconds, and I can hit preview, and it's going to give me a preview. And now it's like, oh, it's giving me a weird preview. What is going on? Well, always think at the transition. The transition right now, it says animate to shot. So basically, if I'm here in the animation, and I want to actually animate to the point where my next shot is going to go. If I click this, it's going to animate to the start point, and then it's going to bring me to the end point. I find that really confusing. So I'm going to change the transition to cut to shot. So you'll see the difference. If I start here and I press on my second animation, it's going to cut to the start point of my animation and show me the animation. And this is what I like. You also have the option to fade from black into shot, which is also a nice option for a beginning or an entrance shot if you want. And now I have my animation that I have just created. So obviously you can create a bunch of animation. And what I like to do when I create a video is like create a fluid animation. So basically my next shot would be here. I'm going to create another start to end, and I would start my animation where this animation ends. So I'm going to call this one animation 2. Okay, I like that. This would be my end shot. I'm going to reset the end, and I'm going to do cut to shot, obviously. And I'm going to leave it 5 seconds. I'm going to do a preview to see. Okay, it's going around. Yes, I like that. If I don't like that, obviously, you know, I can adjust it a little bit. I can actually be maybe more like, this is actually what I'm looking for. I'm going to reset the end, and I'm going to hit preview again, and it's going to give me a preview of this modification that I did. And this is kind of like, yes, I like that. Perfect. Now I'm going to close. Now you'll see that if I start from animation 1, it's going to animate, stop there. I like that. Now if I click on animation 2, fluidly, it's going to continue from the end point of the first animation and go to the second animation. So when you're creating animation shot, something to keep in mind is what is the order of these animation, and you might want to keep the end point, the start point of your next animation to keep a fluid movement in between the animation. So it's not, when you're playing them all together, it's not breaking apart and all of that stuff. Sometimes it is because that's what you're looking for. Sometimes it's more of a fluid movement because that's what you're looking looking for. So something to keep in mind. Something else to keep in mind, this is nice, but I can also rotate my camera. Now you have camera properties, and that's going to add a little bit more creativity to your shot. So let's have a look at that. So under the view menu, you can have access to the camera properties, and something that I like to do is add a tilt to my camera. So you can add a tilt. So you see here, so it's giving you like a little bit more of a creative movement as you animating your shot. And I'm going to load the properties of my animated shot number 2, and I'm going to reset the endpoint, and you'll see now that my animation is a little bit more fluid, and it's giving me an angle. It's like almost like an helicopter ride almost now, and now I have a little bit more creativity. So camera properties, something to keep in mind. You don't need to, but something that you can change. You can also change the angle of view. You know, if you want to have a wide angle or like a closer, like a micro angle if you want. So something to keep in mind. 50 is normally the normal, or 35 millimeter is something that you're going to use more often. So this is where you can change. You know, and then the rest of it, I don't normally change it unless you know the camera position that you're looking for, because you have set it up in another scene and you're aware of it. So this is it for the animation, creating the animation. You can always create still images. You can create as many animation as you want. And then we're going to start using these animation as part of the storyboard. To keep in mind, if I call my alternative, whenever an animation is playing, I can load alternative as well, and the alternative can always be loaded at any time, or you know, all the animations are basically going to work with your alternative. Alternative and animation are two different things, so they basically don't interfere in between each other unless you start placing them into a storyboard slide, which is going to be our next step. Okay, before I move on to the storyboard, I just want to have a quick word about the environment. So I'm going to close my alternative and my animated shot, and I'm going to press E for environment. So Showcase offer a bunch of predetermined or preset environment. You can always create your own, and you can find easy information about that. I'm just going to show you what happened when you start changing your environment. So I'm just going to load a random one. So ID Bloom is one of the one that I use a lot for different visual style, like more abstract style. So I'm going to load this one. It's going to take a few minutes. And now you get the results. So basically, this ID Bloom environment is super small. You can see it here. Obviously, the building is much too big. So to keep in mind, Showcase was designed for small objects, and this building that we have right now is quite of a large building. I mean, not a huge building, but larger than a small object that Showcase is normally dealing with. So in order to adjust that, no problem, I'm just going to load the scene setting, and I'm going to maximize the size of my environment. So if I scroll down to larger size, this is not big enough, and I'm going to just enter 20. So now, you know, maybe 25 would be large enough. And you see that even though my scene is large enough now, my building is not really setting in the middle of this environment, and it's going to cause me problems. So no problem. Again, I'm just going to go to scene setting, and I'm going to move on the X and a Z my environments. Oops, sorry, minus 50 maybe. So now my building sits in the middle of my environment. So now if I zoom closer, you'll see that my environment is sitting, my building is sitting nicely under my environment. Now this environment might look kind of a little bit weird with my building that has all of the materials, but if I load the flat color, for example, this is a nice environment to use with an abstract style, which will give you more of a, you know, like a sketching kind of feel to your building. So really nice environment, really useful, gives you nice result, nice reflection. Press the E button again, and let's load, for example, the Sepulveda, which gives me nice result because it's a nice clear day and it's got a nice sun and few clouds. So I'm going to load this environment and see where this is giving me. Now, because I have changed the scene setting, it's going to keep the scene setting for the next environment. So now the scene setting might not be working for that environment. Obviously, that environment was bigger, and now that I increased the size, it's now way too big. So I'm going to go back to scene settings, and I'm going to lower the size of this environment to maybe 9. That seems to be kind of fine. So maybe a little bit smaller. Yeah, something like that. Now you see this environment might not be the best for my particular building because the concrete is really large and you could see the bridge in the background, but it depends on your angle, because if you go in that particular angle here, you know, it depends. If you're only grabbing a still image and you are able to not see the bridge in the background, then you might be fine using that particular environment. So basically, you kind of have to find out what is the best environment for your particular scene, adjust the scene setting according to the environment, and there you go. And sometimes for still images, you can get away with some environments that's looking from far might not look appropriate, but looking by according to a certain camera angle, you will be fine. So then again, you know, I would have to adjust the environment setting from this particular environment, but I'm getting some sort of a cool result if I'm going to a lower camera angle here. You notice as well that depending on my environment, the shadow get affected. So depending on where the sun is according to the environment, the sun will be moving and the shadow will be adjusted to give you realistic lighting with the environment. So it's using HDR lighting and it's reading the point of light in the environment to adjust the sun position according to the environment. So I'm going to go back to 1.5 because I know that my environment that I had, that's what my settings were. And I'm going to load back my original grass field environment and you'll see that I am fine. And notice that the shadow will change according to the environment. And there you go, I'm back to my scene and you see that the shadow has been adjusted according to this specific environment. And you know that you are able to move that shadow if it gets in the way of your project. So something to keep in mind, most of the time this specific environment is the one I find is the most efficient for the large architecture scene. Okay, so I am now using the showcase for AEC step 6, which is basically the step just before creating the storyboard slide. So what I have in that scene, I already have alternatives. I already have animated shots, and these shots are the states that I have in my demo. I'm going to start organizing all these elements into a storyboard so I can have an interactive presentation where all these elements are playing in a certain order. You also remember that I have access to my behavior, which is my animated cross section, so I have it in here. Now I'm going to call the storyboard, which is I'm going to press U on my keyboard and it's going to load the storyboard menu. So I'm going to start by creating a storyboard slide, and this slide is basically empty and I can add any element to this slide in order to have a certain element play one after the other. So what I'm going to start by doing is adding an animation. So this slide is going to play this specific animation. I'm going to say add to current storyboard slide. So now I have this animated shot in my storyboard slide. Now this animated shot, if I load at the property, it lasts 8 seconds. So my storyboard slide for now will be 8 seconds. So now I have my storyboard slide. Okay, it's going to play this. But what else do I want? I want to show a couple of material alternative as this animation is playing. So no problem. I'm going to load the add this first alternative, which is the original look with the wood, to the storyboard slide. So you see it's being added. And maybe I'm going to show the brick as well as the stone. So I'm add this current. So now I have 3 different material alternative into my storyboard slide. Now I'm finding this icon a little bit confusing. I want to have an image for this storyboard slide so I can easily recognize it. No problem. I'm going to right click and set image, and it's going to grab the image that I have on my viewport. So now you see I have this image. What else can you do? So if you hit play right now, it's going to play this animation and it's going to show you the alternative, but maybe they're happening too fast and I want to adjust them the way I want. No problem. I'm going to right click on my storyboard slide and call for the properties. And within the properties, you can actually move these these alternatives and place them exactly where you want them to be. So maybe at 3 seconds, I want to start showing the brick alternative, and at 5.5 seconds, I want to start showing the stone alternative. So now if I hit play, you'll see that it's going to play my animation a little longer. When it hit 3 seconds, it's going to switch to brick, and then it's going to switch to stone at 5.5 seconds. So I'm liking this. Now what else can I add? You can choose here and start adding some more stuff. You can kind of like add some positional lineup, cross sections. You can add the behavior if you want, animated cross section that I have created. You can add the environment, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to add the environment, so you can see now that I have my environment that is lasting all the way. But you can also add a different shot. For example, after this particular shot, you can go and show the shot 3, which is an inside shot. Now, I don't know why these are not displaying property, but you see that this shot has been added, and now the duration of my slide is now 13 seconds. So for a reason or another, I have to close this and load the property again to see this this still shot that's been added. So now if I hit play, you'll notice that it's a little bit different. It's going to play the animation. It's going to show me the alternative. And after 8 seconds, it's going to move to my still image, which is inside, showing me the inside lobby. So basically, one slide could be multiple different animation, multiple different stills. It could show alternative. Your shot, your slide could be whatever they want. And basically, you're starting to create a story as you're adding these storyboard slides. So you can have another one, storyboard slide. And in this one, you have, for example, a bunch of different still images, for example. And that's kind of it. They're all playing one after the other. So for example, if I hit play, slide from the start, you'll see that it's playing this still image for 5 seconds. And then after 5 seconds, it's playing the other one for 5 seconds. Now, if I want my slide, my still images to play for last, and you see that I have material alternative right now that is set to stone. It's telling me right now. So that's why I'm seeing the stone inside of my model. If I want to show the wood inside of my model, then I would have to add the wood, add to current storyboard. So now if I hit play again, play from the start, it's going to show me with the wood instead of the stone. So you can really alter all of these storyboard slides and really start telling a story. Now I was saying, if you want to change the length of these shots, you're going to have to go and change the property of these shots and ask him to play only for 3 seconds, and therefore it's going to update your storyboard slide. So obviously I would like to have an image here so I can kind of recognize what it's doing. So basically this is how you set up your slide. Once all your slides are created, multiple ways to expose it. Now you can use the presentation mode to display all of these animation directly in Showcase and give control to your clients or customers. So let's have a look on how we can start presenting this model by using presentation mode. Now I'm working with Showcase for AEC step 7, which is the final step. And in that step, I do have my alternative set up. I also have my shots that are set up, and these shots are actually the one that I use to output the final animation movie. So you'll have a bunch of different shots animated here. And I also have access to my storyboard slide, which is composed of all of these shots, different background, behavior. So you see if you click on this little arrow, it's giving you what is happening in each storyboard slide. So now I have a nice, more complicated one here and some still at the end. So basically you have information on these. Now let's use presentation mode to present this live. So basically, if you just go presentation mode, normally when you have your scene maximize, your showcase maximize, it would hide all the menu. Now because I'm working in the minimize showcase, it's not hiding all the menus, so I'm just going to hide them manually. But the first thing that you will notice is that you no longer have the orbit option. Now I'm not touching anything on my keyframe, and already my cursor is set to orbit. So basically, this is set for the person who's never used Showcase and basically is new. So these people don't know the shortcut. So you can kind of just browse around and basically navigate through this scene without pressing any shortcut. Obviously, you still have access to the steering wheel by pressing Shift and W. So obviously, if you know the shortcut is better. Maybe for presentation mode, it's a good idea to show the navigation bar. So people do have access to their menu. So orbits and navigation and walk around. But they also have access to the menu itself, such as animation. So they can actually go and play certain animation. You know, okay, I'm looking at this one, maybe a still image, maybe this animated shot. Okay, I like that. Maybe this last one here. This is a still, perfect. I like that. Maybe this animated shot here, what's ending. So you can play with the animated shot. You can also play with the alternative. So basically what I suggest is that if you're using presentation mode, you can basically have all these menu open already, and your client can kind of navigate through these menu and maybe called for a cross section by themselves, so they can explore your building and experience it and really have a good idea of what is going on. But you'll see that if I click on my menu, because I still have access to my menu, they won't have access to the menu. But even if they do have access to the menu in presentation mode, you see that everything is grayed out. I actually can't really do anything to the scene. I can't change the scene. I can only have access to the menu that allows me to navigate and explore this building to have an experience. So this is a good way to present your model, and you know that your client cannot alter you cannot alter the model itself because he doesn't have access to the menus, or he can't create anything else. He can just create what is already set up in your model. So this is a good way to present. Now there's a lot of other options in presentation. I'm just going to get out of presentation mode to show you other options here. So now I'm out of presentation mode. Something to look into, compare scene will allow you to load two different scenes and compare them side by side, which is also a really cool way to present your model if you have two different type of model, if you're not loading a model alternative, something to keep in mind. Now the other thing that I want to talk to you is the fact that your storyboard slide, you can actually export your storyboard slide into a Flash presentation. So this will export all the slide into one Flash presentation, which is a really cool way to show your model as well, something you might want to explore. And what I did myself is export each of these slides into a movie. So save slide as a movie. And what is this giving you? The grayed out area is what you're not going to see. So the size of your movie will be 640 by 840. So this is the aspect ratio. Obviously, I normally work under a more of a bigger, like a HD kind of screen. So what I did is I export my movie at 1280 by 720. So it's only cropping a little bit on both sides. I normally export it as a QuickTime movie. And the only thing that I do is I click in the anti-aliasing and I crank this up to high, so I don't have a lot of buzzing effect in my vertical line. And then it's creating, you know, you can create a movie of slide one, or all the shot together, or all the shots separately. Depends. There's a lot of options that you have access to. All the shots, the animation itself, or kind of there if you want. So what it is all the shots together. I think I did actually all the shots separately, and now it's going to create a movie of all the storyboard slide, and now it's going to give me the result of that. So I'm just going to hit cancel, and you'll notice that in the slide, in the folder here called video images, you have access to all the images that I have output for you. So this is slide number 1, where you have the animation of your cross section, which I did output as an animation. So you see the cross section is moving slowly towards your building, and you see that I'm using an abstract style and a white background here. So this is a more conceptual looking building, which I like for this particular presentation. Then I export the slide number 3, and this is a different animation. It's showing you different material alternative and all of that, which is great. At the end, it shows you the material alternative once you're here. Perfect. And then the other slide is showing you the still images one by one of the interior. And what I did is I use After Effects and I combine all of these animation one after the other. But I could also decide to output one movie that have all of these slides all combined together. So this is one way to do it. You also notice that you have access to my last the composition of this animation altogether. So you see there's different effects that are happening here with still images kind of like fading in and fading out of each other, and now you have a full presentation out of that. So basically this is how I created it. I create a storyboard slide, I laid out my animation, and I export a movie out of that. So really good way to present your model if your client doesn't have Showcase. Now, if your client doesn't have Showcase, they can also download a Showcase viewer to their own desk, and then you can send them the project and they can view the Showcase project itself in the Showcase viewer, and they'll have access to all the animated shots, the alternatives, the storyboard, and everything that you have created for them. So I hope that this video was helpful for you, and that with all the scene you'll be able to create and be comfortable to create your own live presentation with Showcase. If you do have more question and you want to know something else, you can always use the Quick Start wizard. You can also use the help menu of Showcase, which is quite helpful. There's lots of information out there for you. You can always contact me. I'm there to help you. So I hope you enjoyed this file and this project, and you create amazing live presentation out of these data sets.